Hello, my name is Dr. Molly Bucky, and I am the Training and Outreach Coordinator in the Office of Equity and Civil Rights Compliance here at Ohio University. My office, the Office of Equity and Civil Rights Compliance, ensures that the university maintains an employment and educational environment that is free from discrimination and harassment. This training will focus on two important university policies, including the Equal Employment and Educational Opportunity, or EEOC policy, and the Sexual Harassment and Other Sexual Misconduct policy, which were both developed in compliance with federal and state laws and regulations to help support these university goals. Ohio University Policy 40.001 is the Equal Employment and Educational Opportunity, or EEOC policy. It prohibits discrimination against any person in employment or educational opportunities because of race, color, religion, age, ethnicity, national origin, national ancestry, sex, pregnancy, gender, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, military service or veteran status, mental or physical disability, or genetic information, except as explicitly provided for in this policy. Additionally, per Ohio Executive Order 2019-05D, the following statuses are also protected: status as a parent during pregnancy and immediately after the birth of a child, status as a parent of a young child, and status as a foster parent. University faculty, staff, students, or volunteers may not retaliate against a person who has made a protected disclosure under this policy. Ohio University's Sexual Harassment and Other Sexual Misconduct Policy, Policy 03.004, is grounded in the Title IX Educational Amendments to the Civil Rights Act enacted in 1972. The specific language is: no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. New regulations were implemented on August 14, 2020. Policy 03.004 conforms with these regulations. The expectations outlined in Ohio University Policy 03.004 apply to all aspects of Ohio University operations, locations, and programs, and to all members of the Ohio University community. Sexual harassment under Title IX is unwelcome conduct determined by a reasonable person to be so severe and pervasive and objectively offensive that it effectively denies a person equal access to Ohio University's education program or activity. This charge may be applied if the behavior occurred within Ohio University's education programs or activities and in the United States, and if the complainant was participating in or attempting to participate in the education program or activity of Ohio University at the time of filing a formal complaint. Under all other circumstances within the scope and jurisdiction of Policy 03.004, sexual harassment under university policy may be applied. Sexual harassment under university policy is physical or verbal conduct of a sexual nature that is unwelcome and sufficiently severe or pervasive from both a subjective, the complainant's, and an objective, a reasonable person's viewpoint, where such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with a person's work or academic performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for working, learning, or living on campus. Sexual harassment by quid pro quo is when an employee of Ohio University conditions the provision of an aid, benefit, or service of Ohio University on an individual's participation in unwelcome sexual conduct. Sexual assault includes forcible sex offenses, which are sexual acts directed against another person without the consent of that person, including instances when that person is incapable of giving consent. Sexual acts in this definition include forcible rape, forcible sodomy, sexual assault with an object, and forcible fondling. Detailed definitions of these sexual acts may be found in University Policy 03.004. Sexual assault also includes incest and statutory rape as outlined by Ohio law. Dating violence is physical violence on the basis of sex committed by a person who is in or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the complainant. The existence of such a relationship shall be determined based on the complainant's statements and with consideration of the length of the relationship, the type of relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. Domestic violence is physical violence on the basis of sex committed by a current or former spouse or intimate partner of the complainant, by a person with whom the complainant shares a child, by a person who is now or has in the past cohabitated with the complainant as a spouse or intimate partner, by a person similarly situated to a spouse of the complainant under domestic or family laws of Ohio, or by any other person against an adult or youth who is protected from such acts under Ohio law. Stalking is engaging in a course of conduct, so two or more, on the basis of sex, directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for their own safety or for the safety of others, or suffer substantial emotional distress. Sexual harassment under university policy is physical or verbal conduct of a sexual nature that is unwelcome and sufficiently severe or pervasive from both a subjective, the complainant's, and an objective, a reasonable person's, viewpoint, where such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with a person's work or academic performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for working, learning, or living on campus. Sexual exploitation occurs when a person knowingly or recklessly takes non-consensual or abusive sexual advantage of another person for the person's own advantage or benefit, or to benefit or advantage anyone other than the one being exploited, and that behavior does not otherwise constitute one of the other sexual misconduct offenses. For example, non-consensual video or audio recordings or photographing of sexual activity, going beyond the boundaries of consent, voyeurism, or public indecency. Retaliation means that no person may intimidate, threaten, coerce, or discriminate against any individual for the purpose of interfering with any right or privilege secured by Title IX or this policy, or because the individual has made a report or complaint, testified, assisted, or participated, or refused to participate in any manner in an investigation, proceeding, or hearing. The exercise of rights under the First Amendment does not constitute a retaliation prohibited under this section. Since several definitions in the Sexual Harassment and Other Sexual Misconduct Policy, Policy 03.004, refer to consent, it is important to know the Ohio University definition of consent. Consent must be informed, knowing, and voluntary. Consent must be clear and unambiguous for each participant throughout any sexual encounter. Consent to some sexual acts does not imply consent to others, nor does past consent to a given act imply ongoing or future consent. Consent can be revoked at any time. For all of these reasons, sexual partners must evaluate consent in an ongoing fashion and should communicate clearly with each other throughout any sexual encounter. Consent cannot be obtained from someone who is asleep or otherwise mentally or physically incapacitated, whether due to alcohol, drugs, or some other condition. Consent cannot be obtained by threat, coercion, or force. Agreement given under such conditions does not constitute consent. In order to give effective consent, one must be of legal age. Consensual romantic or sexual relationships in which one party retains a direct supervisory or evaluative role over the other party are unethical, create a risk for real or perceived coercion, and are expressly a violation of this policy. Furthermore, the possibility of a future amorous relationship may distort the present instructional or advising relationship. Therefore, persons with direct supervisory, evaluative, grading, or academic advising responsibilities who are involved in such relationships must bring those relationships to the attention of their supervisor. This will likely result in the necessity to remove the employee from the supervisory, evaluative, grading, or academic advising responsibilities. All Ohio University faculty, administrators, and staff, with the exception of those identified as confidential resources on the next slide, have a duty to immediately report violations of this policy to the Title IX coordinator if they receive a complaint of a violation or observe or learn of conduct that is reasonably believed to be in violation of this policy. Graduate assistants and student employees have a duty to report violations of this policy if they become aware of the violations in the course of their duties, and those duties include responsibility for the safety and well-being of other members of the campus community, or if they have supervisory, evaluative, grading, or advisory responsibility over other members of the campus community. The best way to report is through the Sexual Misconduct Reporting Form found on the Ohio University Equity and Civil Rights Compliance webpage. Reports can also be made through email at title9@ohio.edu, by telephone at 740-593-9140, or in person at 006 Lindley Hall. Certain campus and local resources may maintain confidentiality when acting under the scope of their licensure, professional ethics, and/or professional credentials, except in extreme cases of immediate threat or danger, in cases of abuse of certain populations, for example, minors, or when required to disclose by law or court order. These resources may offer options and resources without any obligation to inform a campus official or law enforcement authorities. Ohio University confidential resources include licensed professionals and staff at counseling and psychological services, healthcare providers and staff at campus care, licensed professional counselors available through the Employee Assistance Program, licensed professionals and students registered for practice under a licensed psychologist at the Psychology and Social Work Clinic, and advocates at the Survivor Advocacy Program. Other available campus resources include the Office of Equity and Civil Rights Compliance, or ECRC, which is located in Lindley Hall and can be reached by phone at 740-593-9140 or by email at equity@ohio.edu. Community Standards, which is located in Baker Center, room 349, and by telephone at 740-593-2629, or the Ohio University Police Department, which is located at Ridges Circle, number 118, and can be reached by phone at 740-593-1910 11. Please follow the link below and complete the short quiz. You will be asked to sign in using your Ohio University username and password so that ECRC can track who has completed this training. Thank you for your time. And just a reminder, you can reach the Office of Equity and Civil Rights Compliance by phone at 740-593-9140, by email at equity@ohio.edu, and you can reach me personally. Again, my name is Dr. Molly Buckey, and I can be reached at 740-593-9149 or by email at Buckey, that's BUKKY, @ohio.edu. Thank you again and have a nice day.